Beginning in 1824, the United States will go through a period that's generally referred to as the Jacksonian Era. Even the name is as controversial as the man it's named after, Andrew Jackson. Jackson is a very polarizing figure, and so a lot of historians don't want to name the entire period after him because they just don't like him. I think that's a mistake. For better and for worse, Andrew Jackson is the dominant figure for about 20 years, from 1824 until the end of the Mexican-American War in 1848. During that time, he will completely dominate. He loses the election of 1824 to John Quincy Adams, and then he and his followers claim there was a corrupt bargain and the election was stolen from him. And they go on a 4-year campaign to destroy John Quincy Adams' presidency, which they do successfully. He then runs in 1828 and wins overwhelmingly, runs again in 1832 and wins overwhelmingly, and then is so powerful, he's able to handpick his successor and tell the party that he created, you are going to run Martin Van Buren in 1836, and the party does it because no one's going to defy him. And in all those elections, Jackson and then Martin Van Buren will run on one word: Jackson. Policies are not as important as the person. During that period, Jackson will also create the second party system. After the first party system dies out, Federalists and Republicans, the second party system is created. And one of the parties, the Democrats, is the party that is everyone devoted to Jackson. And the other party, the Whigs, is everyone that hates Andrew Jackson. So, Jackson will dominate this whole period. So what exactly does that mean? What does the Jacksonian era stand for? And there are a couple things that are important to keep in mind as you go through these lectures. First, the period of the Jacksonian era is also called the rise of the common man, or the rise of Jacksonian democracy. Obviously, women weren't given the right to vote, or minorities, Native Americans. No group is given the right to vote except white heterosexual males. But among white heterosexual males, there will be a huge increase in the amount that comes out to vote because they get excited. And so they will consider themselves more politically powerful, and they will be more actively engaged in politics. And politics will be completely changed because of this. So in a sense, there is more democracy, but just not for everyone. Now, in the United States, we love the word democracy. But before this period, the word democracy was actually a bad word. It was a pejorative. The Founding Fathers would call each other Democrats, say that they act like Democrats, to say that you're acting like a demagogue. You are trying to appeal to the masses to give them, what they want so you can get more power. So the word democracy was an insult until Jackson's presidency. And then he is the one, during his administration, that is when the word will become a good thing. So with this in mind, what exactly does the rise of the common man mean? For two areas. First, elections. What will happen to elections? During Jackson's presidency, during this period, elections fundamentally changed to what they had been originally in the United States up to that point. Now, how exactly does the political process change? If you are going to get everyone out to vote, and that is the objective, how will that change elections? Are elections going to be better or worse? Are they going to be more substantive or dumber? Are they going to get more enlightened, policy-driven, or are they going to be dumbed down and just mean and aggressive? So first, think of what do the actual elections, what does the political process look like? Second, policy. During Jackson's presidency, a majority of Americans will support the majority of his policies, especially his major policies. So the common man, average Americans, the majority of them will support the spoil system, Indian removal, war. South Carolina will threaten to secede and Jackson will come down hard on them. And also the killing of the second bank of the United States. 4 major areas that we are going to look at. The majority of Americans supported him. So, does that mean, because the majority of Americans supported him, that that is a good thing? In this country, we love the word democracy. We love to say he is a man of the people, he's supported by the people. Is that automatically make it good? So think about that. What does it mean that a majority of Americans are supporting the policies? And keep in the back of your mind the fact that the majority of Americans during this period couldn't read, couldn't write, didn't have an education at all. They were overwhelmingly farmers who spent all day working in the fields. So think of it like if we're looking at a different country, that was a third world country where the majority of the population weren't educated, would we say they're going to make wise decisions that are good for the majority of people and help progress the country, move forward and advance? So think about the policies and what do the policies mean for the rise of the common man during this period. The second major thing to think about during Jackson's presidency and the Jacksonian era overall is Jackson will make the executive branch more powerful than it has ever been before. And it will be the most powerful that it will ever be until you get into the 20th century, besides wars. You have to go all the way up to FDR in a time of peace to find another president that will be as powerful. And Jackson is probably more powerful than FDR is. The reason I can say that with some certainty is because during Jackson's presidency, he will make it very clear that he is more powerful than every other branch of government, every other checks and balances, every level of government. He will veto more acts of Congress than all the presidents before him combined. Most of the presidents before that believed Congress represented the will of the people, so it was improper for presidents to veto very much. Jackson has no qualms with that. He believes that his voice, his beliefs are superior to Congress, so he will veto more acts than the previous 6 presidents combined. Jackson will also make it very clear that he is more powerful than the Supreme Court. Not only will he just contradict Supreme Court rulings and say, yeah, they said that, but I disagree with them, but he will blatantly ignore Supreme Court rulings that he doesn't like. Supreme Court will make some rulings, and he'll just say, too bad, I'm not doing that, I'm not following that. He will state that he, as president, should be the final interpreter of the Constitution. If you remember, there was a debate between Federalists and Republicans on who should be the final interpreter of the Constitution. Federalists said it should be the Supreme Court. The federal government, or Republicans, especially Jefferson, said it should be the states. Jackson is ignoring all that, and he said, no, it should be me, the president. He will make the executive branch significantly more powerful than the other 2 branches and just completely override anything they do that he doesn't like. He will also make it very clear he's more powerful than the states by coming down hard on South Carolina when South Carolina disagrees with him. And he will make it very clear that he is more powerful than the executive, or he is the defining feature of the executive branch and more powerful than ever in his administration by firing anyone that just disagrees with him for anything. He will fire his entire cabinet over a woman, and he will fire 2 Secretary of the Treasuries because they will try to convince him that maybe he is wrong about something, which he was wrong, but never mind. So, if Jackson expands the power of the presidency more than anyone else or any executive before him, what is his political philosophy? What does he stand for? Jefferson and Hamilton, they had political philosophies. What is Jackson's? If he's going to expand the presidency that much, he probably should stand for something, right? So what is his philosophy? A third question. During this period, we get the rise of the second party system. In U.S. history, we have 3 party systems: Federalists and Republicans, and Federalists died out, and then it was only Republicans until the election of 1824, when that splinters. And then we will get the second party system, which is the Democratic Republicans, or the party created by Andrew Jackson, who will drop the word Republican and just call themselves the Democrats. There's a direct line between the Democrats created by Andrew Jackson and the Democratic Party around today. Now, obviously, the party has changed very significantly, but in name, it is the same party. So, Jackson will create it, and it is a party of everyone that loves Andrew Jackson. That is the overall theme of the party is, if you love Andrew Jackson, you are a Democrat. To oppose him, we will get the National Republicans for 2 elections, and then the National Republicans will be replaced by the Whigs, a party devoted to everyone that hates Andrew Jackson. That is the unifying theme. If you hate Andrew Jackson for any reason whatsoever, come on in. And if you're thinking, that sounds like a really dumb party, well, first, it is a dumb party. Second, it's kind of like the Democrats today, so it's a bad way to organize a party. That's why the modern day Democrats are so insanely divided. It's just anyone that doesn't like Donald Trump. So these are the 2 parties. What do they stand for besides loving and hating Andrew Jackson? What policies do they stand for? Why? And which one would you more closely align with? And finally, the 4th question, which we'll get to next week. During this period, the United States will go through a period of expansion where it will conquer the last 1/3 of the continental United States. Oregon, the Texas, Oregon, and then the Mexican cession, or the period that includes California, Nevada, New Mexico, Colorado, and Arizona. The explanation for why this whole period was conquered, that you will regularly hear, is manifest destiny. You hear this all the time. And Americans expanded and they got all this territory because of manifest destiny. I've heard people with their PhDs give this statement. Well, good, thank you. What the hell does manifest destiny mean? And what you will often hear is, it means Americans believed that they had a responsibility to spread the American way of life all over the continent. Well, that sounds very altruistic and nice. Does that exactly jive with what we know about humans conquering other lands? I mean, we know humans will always say what sounds good, but is that a good explanation? So we will look at what is Manifest Destiny and why is Manifest Destiny a part of the Jacksonian era if Jackson is no longer in the White House? So these are the 4 big questions we will be looking at over the next 2 weeks. And a very important thing to consider. You can tell a lot about a president by which previous president they most closely associate with. And you can tell this by which president's portrait they hang on their wall. The current sitting president, Donald J. Trump, most associates himself with Andrew Jackson. That is the portrait he put up. That is the portrait that he says is the politician that he represents. And there's a lot written on this. This is not my opinion. Although no 2 historical periods are identical, and there are significant differences, it would be a mistake not to acknowledge that there are also some very big similarities between Andrew Jackson and Donald Trump's presidencies. There are a whole lot of similarities to the periods that they are living through and why they became such powerful presidents. So keep that in the back of your mind as you go through these next lectures.